Buying and Selling Usage Rights, Treating State Property Like My Own. Episode 12. North Korea's Transition to Capitalism, Real Estate Usage Rights. Creating the miracle on the Taedong River. North Korea's Workers' Party can implement a market economy. As North Korea transitions to a capitalist market economy while maintaining its political system, reforming the real estate system, including land and housing, is the most sensitive and critical task. Constitutionally, land and the means of production are, in principle, owned by the state or cooperatives, and private property is limited to consumer goods and sideline income. However, following the arduous march of the 1990s, the expansion of informal jangmadang marketplaces and the emergence of donju wealthy landowners led to active housing transactions. Informal marketization has already progressed significantly, with Pyongyang apartment prices rising to levels ranging from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. To maintain the political system, it is more realistic to adopt a gradual, dual-track model similar to China and Vietnam, rather than radical privatization, that is, complete privatization. This approach maintains the socialist principle of state and collective ownership in name only, while practically expanding individuals' long-term usage, management, and trading rights, and strengthening legal protection. First, let us examine the current status of North Korea's real estate system and its major issues. Land is owned by the state or cooperatives. Agricultural land is managed under the field responsibility system, where cultivation is carried out by families and individuals, but it is subject to strict state-mandated procurement and planned control. Urban land is state-owned, and the construction and trading of private housing are, in principle, illegal. While the principle is for the state to distribute housing free of charge, in reality, informal buying, selling, and leasing are widespread. High-end apartments in Pyongyang, such as those on Future Scientist Street and Ryomyong Street, are often constructed with capital from wealthy individuals, donju. Legally, only the right of use, that is, the right to reside, is recognized, and the transfer of ownership is illegal, yet this practice has become customary. This situation gives rise to many problems. Due to insufficient legal protection, the state can confiscate or manipulate the property at any time, ultimately dampening the motivation for investment or improvement. Opacity breeds corruption. Informal transactions lead to rampant bribery and the widening of inequality. The allocation of resources is distorted, ignoring market demand and causing housing shortages and a decline in quality. The marketization of real estate expands the influence of wealthy individuals, and the North Korean leadership likely harbors concerns that the party's control may weaken. There are roughly 4 principles by which North Korea reforms its real estate system, while maintaining its political system: nominal maintenance, gradual reform, parallel control, and a dual-track approach. This involves maintaining socialist principles in name only, while the constitutional provision on state and cooperative ownership remains intact. A new provision is introduced to grant long-term usage rights to individuals and enterprises as prescribed by law. The plan will be implemented gradually, starting with regional pilots in special economic zones such as Rason and Sinŭiju, and beginning in Pyongyang, with expansion to the entire country if successful. By maintaining parallel control by the party and the state retains the rights to land use planning and compulsory acquisition, while strengthening the principles of compensation. Using a dual-track approach, the existing planning and distribution system will be maintained, while new and excess portions will be permitted to be traded at market prices. Now I will introduce North Korea's phased plan for reforming its real estate system. In the short term, spanning 1 to 3 years, the focus is on clarifying usage rights and formalizing the informal market. First, the Constitution, civil law, and housing law must be amended. Renewable long-term usage rights for land and housing, valid for periods of 30 to 50 years, will be codified. Inheritance and leasing will be permitted, but the right of disposal will be restricted. Provisions restricting speculation for anti-socialist purposes will be maintained, but criteria will be clarified to prevent arbitrary application. A land usage right registration system will be introduced, with registration offices established at the county and provincial levels to issue usage certificates for existing housing and farmland. The farmland field responsibility system will be expanded to grant family unit contractual management rights for farmland. This is similar to China's family responsibility system of the 1980s. The free sale of surplus produce will be expanded. The housing market will be partially liberalized to legalize the buying and selling and leasing of existing housing, and taxes, such as transaction and property taxes, will be imposed to generate national fiscal revenue. Participation by private capital and financial institutions in new housing construction is permitted. In the form of a joint venture with the state provides only land use rights, while construction and sales are led by the private sector. This will be applied first to special economic zones, granting land use rights within these zones for over 50 years and allowing their transfer, thereby linking it to attracting foreign investment. The intermediate phase of 3 to 7 years is a stage focused on strengthening market functions and refining the system. Transactions and mortgages are expanded to allow the transfer, leasing, and mortgage collateralized loans of usage rights, thereby enabling the utilization of real estate as capital. Real estate exchanges and brokerage markets are established, and urban land use systems are created. A zoning system is introduced to distinguish residential, commercial, and industrial zones. Private development is permitted, allowing private capital to develop infrastructure such as roads and electricity through BOT Build, Operate, Transfer and PPP Public-Private Partnership. For rural land, large-scale operations through integrated cultivation are allowed by converting collective farms into autonomous agricultural enterprises and granting farmers long-term usage rights. For mountainous areas and non-agricultural land, sideline businesses such as fruit farming and livestock raising, as well as housing construction, are freely permitted. Property tax and capital gains tax are introduced by linking taxation and fiscal policy. The principle of just compensation in cases of compulsory expropriation is codified, and relocation is supported based on market prices. In the long term, starting 7 years from now, we are in the stage of completing a market economy-based real estate system. Through constitutional amendments, the scope of private property, including the means of production, will be significantly expanded. It will be converted into fully transferable usage rights, making them virtually equivalent to ownership. Real estate finance will be developed to allow for mortgage loans and real estate funds. Investments will be protected by adhering to international standards. Transparent registration and public disclosure systems will be operated, and environmental and urban planning regulations will be strengthened. Referring to the models of China and Vietnam can provide insights for applying them to North Korea. In China, productivity skyrocketed because rural land maintained collective ownership and long-term usage rights of over 30 years were granted to farming households. For urban land, while the state owned it, the bidding and transfer of usage rights were permitted, allowing local governments to secure finances through land revenue. In Vietnam, a rapid transition to a family-based farming system liberalized the inheritance and trading of land usage rights. Although inequality widened in the initial stages, it promoted economic growth. To maintain its political system, North Korea, like China, could minimize backlash by combining state control with market incentives and providing certain initial privileges to companies and elites affiliated with the party and the military. However, to prevent corruption and speculation, it is necessary to limit the maximum landholding area and strengthen taxes. As long as the North Korean leadership prioritizes the survival of the regime, complete privatization will be difficult. However, since private property has been recognized and limited marketization is already underway, we can expect improved productivity and foreign investment attraction through gradual reforms. However, if legal uncertainty and political control persist, the effectiveness of attracting investment is likely to be limited. Next time, we will discuss reforms and privatization plans for state-owned enterprises as North Korea transitions to a market economy. Thank you.